So now for some Harry and Meghan update. Apparently, this is the BBC, by the way. I was just reading in the BBC that what just happened here? Why am I in a cookie setting? Okay. I was just reading in the BBC that Prince Harry is challenging the security decision as unfair in the High Court in London. I think this happened yesterday. I don't know if he is physically in London or whether it's just his lawyers. I think he has three lawyers arguing the case who are appearing before the court, which might be the case. It seems like he's not physically in London, but correct me if I'm wrong. So basically, they say that, the UK government is basically saying that they downgraded Harry's security status after he stopped being a working royal. And it would be interesting, I think, to hear what the court says about that. Because to me, it seems the emphasis is on the wrong thing here. There's a flaw in their argument, in other words, that is the government. Because are we saying that we're providing security protection to Catherine and William and Charles and Camilla and Anne and all of the others based on the number of hours they work? Is that the deciding factor? Is that what is dispositive? So you're saying if for any reason at all, one of these people became incapacitated and could not work, whether temporarily or permanently, are we saying that the UK government would downgrade their security status because they are no longer working royals? It just seems to me to be very arbitrary. And I think Harry's point that it was also unfair is correct. I think this was vindictive. And I think someone in the office, or maybe a couple of people in the office, did that to get back at Harry and Meghan because they decided to relocate on a full-time basis to Montecito while keeping their UK home Frogmore Cottage, which was subsequently taken away from them. They did not relinquish it voluntarily. Their home was taken away to basically prevent them from claiming any kind of residential status in the UK. But the idea that their security status is based on the number of hours they work as royals seems very arbitrary, and it almost seems ridiculous. I mean, my understanding is that the government also provides security protection to people who are not working royals, but whose status in the society, in the global community, is one that might potentially expose them to overzealous individuals, one or a group, who might seek to harm them for one reason or another. In other words, the security protection is provided to others like prime ministers and even foreign nobility and kings and queens from other countries, not because they are working royals in the UK, but because of their status as public figures who may be exposed to security threats, right? So it just seems to me to be a little bit um, just strange, this argument that he's no longer a working royal and so therefore he no longer has a threat. Um, this young man's security, not only him, but all of the people I just mentioned, Charles, Camilla, William, Kate, and whoever else receives security protection in that family, receive it because they are members of the family, not because of the amount of time they work for the family or for the institution that is represented by the family, right? They receive it because they are members of that family. They are public figures who are known to be members of that family globally and who therefore potentially are exposed to threats not because of the number of hours they work, but simply because of their status as members of that family, right? So it would be really curious to hear the court's argument that your security exposure is no longer existent or it's reduced depending on the number of hours you work. So if you work 20 hours, I guess that qualifies you as a working royal. You need protection because suddenly your security status changes because you're working 20 hours versus you're working 19 hours, right? Or maybe 20 hours is part time. If you work 40 hours, you would have exposure, to your security versus if you worked 37 hours, you no longer have an exposure that warrants protection. Note that the fact that we all work, everybody works. Everyone works in some way or shape or form. None of us receives protection just on the basis of the fact that we work. It is not the work that entitles you to protection. It is the status as being a public figure who is globally known as the son of one of the most powerful individuals in the world and whose threat levels rise or exist. They exist, and whether they rise or remain constant, the threat levels exist by virtue of the fact that you are the son of this man who is one of the most powerful people in the world. Nobody cares how many hours you work. They're not going to shoot you because you work 20 hours or 5 hours or 100 hours. They shoot because they recognize you as Prince Harry, the son of King Charles III, and they have a personal gripe with you, your wife, or your children, right? And I think everybody knows this to be true. But it would be interesting to hear the court's decision on this because, you don't have to like Harry and Meghan. You really don't have to like Harry and Meghan. But don't make a fool of us with this kind of ridiculous argument that you're not a working royal, so therefore you have no security threats. His work status, his work titles, his work duties have absolutely nothing to do with the threat he faces. Everybody works, but not everybody faces the same kind of threats. Some of us really face very little, if any, threat from a security standpoint. And our threat levels rise depending on who we are. Who we are is determined by our jobs. It's determined by our family connections and affiliations, etc. And for the last almost 40 years, this young man has received protection, not because he's working 15 hours or 20 hours or 40 hours or 200 hours, but because he was a member of this family. Not just a member, but a member who is very close to the top member of this family. He's the son of this man. He unfortunately can't change his DNA. He can't change his paternity, right? So I would be really curious to hear what the high court their argument, I want to hear their argument of he's not a working royal, so therefore he no longer has a security threat. I mean, it's insulting, for God's sake.